Hello again. Didn't see you there. Well, you saw me reading just now, so I assume you want a little lecture from me. Alright, come on. This time I was reading up on Ahriman and Ahura Mazda from Zoroastrian mythology. Their dynamic is one of the oldest and earliest recorded examples of the generic good versus evil archetype that we have in most religions. Zoroastrianism is from ancient Persia, and it was founded by a prophet whose name was Zarathustra around 1500 BCE and 600 BCE. There's no real concrete date, but, it was also 3,000 years ago, so I don't blame anyone for not being 100% sure. Anyway, the main conflict in this pantheon involves Ahura Mazda, aka the Wise Lord, and Angra Mainyu, or Ahriman, aka the Destructive Spirit. Mazda was this supreme creator god of light and wisdom, truth and goodness. He was associated with the sun, fire, and eternal light. And all of these elements, of course, are associated with divine order. Mazda is also the embodiment of Asha, the cosmic principle of order, truth, and righteousness. Mazda basically created the spiritual and physical worlds, was the source of all good, while also working to keep the peace, and granted humans free will, or the free will to choose between good, Asha, and evil, Drush, aka the lie. Not sure about that pronunciation, I'm just gonna go with Drush, because it sounds correct, but anyway. Just remember that Asha is good, Drush is evil, right? Or, lying and stuff. He is often depicted as this radiant figure, or appears as if they're within a winged disc known as the Farabahar. Imagine a bird's wings stretched outward, horizontally, with a gold disc or a ring in the middle, and below the ring is a bird's tail feathers, and in the center, you have the figure of a man. This is supposed to be Mazda, and it's there to represent divine guidance and the eternal soul. Ahriman, on the other hand, is a destructive spirit and the embodiment of chaos, deceit, and evil. He is associated with winter, disease, and death, and, so on. He also seeks to undermine Asha through Druj, so defeat good through lies and disorder. He was responsible for creating these evil spirit creatures known as Daivas to oppose the divine order created by Mazda. He also corrupts creation by introducing things like death and suffering into the world, as well as being a literal antagonist, like he is actively trying to corrupt others and the world. Ahriman is also rarely depicted in Zoroastrian art, so as to avoid glorifying and giving him more influence/power. Throughout history, however, he has been shown to look like a monstrous creature, either reptilian or kind of like a shadow. So, what's their deal? That's when we get to the invasion. Basically, at the dawn of time, we have two realms, that of light and darkness, Mazda's and Ahriman's respectively. Mazda foresees that Ahriman will one day attack, and instead of destroying him, he creates a finite 12,000-year-old cosmic timeline to trap his actions and to ensure an eternal victory. So here's how this plays out. Ahriman sees the creation of everything when Mazda manifests the spiritual prototype of creation known as Menog. Basically, this is the perfect blueprint. Ahriman gets a glimpse of its beauty and goodness through the void and becomes enraged. He literally cannot stand anything that he cannot corrupt. So he crosses the void, breaking through the boundary between realms, which begins the invasion. This, of course, shocks all of creation, as the realm of light had been untouched by darkness until right now. Remember, Ahriman does not create. He can only corrupt what already exists. Ahriman unleashes his daivas, remember, the evil spirits, and Druj, the corruption and disease and so on. These forces he unleashes attack a lot of the spiritual prototypes in this mythology. Things like the primordial bull, which is killed, but his death leads to the creation of all beneficent animals. He also kills the first human, Gaiomart, but this leads to the creation of humanity. As you can probably tell, everything that Ahriman does leads to something else, and this was all part of Mazda's plan. His evil actions, the killings and so on, lead to further Mazda's creations. So think of evil undermining itself. So to protect the spiritual prototypes, Mazda condenses them into a physical form, Getig, creating the material universe. Ahriman is then trapped inside for those 12,000 years. The sun and stars end up acting like cosmic guardians that keep the cycles moving towards the final restoration, or frashokereti. In case you're wondering, the spiritual prototypes are, like the name implies, spiritual or ghostly blueprints of everything. Literally everything. From mountains, the earth, trees, leaves, birds, everything. It's their first iterations. Since Mazda knew Ahriman was going to attack, he made it so the fight would be limited. Anything evil would result in a greater good being created from it, and eventually Ahriman would be rendered powerless at the end of the battle. Zoroastrianism has this worldview where it's dualistic, meaning that the universe is divided into two, good and evil. And said universe is a battlefield for those forces of good and evil. Some mythologies like to teach that evil is forever eternal, and stuff like that. You know, evil never dies or evil never goes away. But Zoroastrianism, they claim that Mazda is eternal and will eventually win. Ahriman, however, has a limited lifespan, meaning that he will be destroyed at the end of time. Speaking of, the end of time victory, or their apocalypse, I guess, is known as Frashokereti, where the world is purified, the dead are resurrected, and all evil is eliminated forever. Humans, of course, do participate in this cosmic struggle, where all of our actions, thoughts, words, everything support either Asha or Druj. In it, ethics are very action-oriented, where good works actively weaken Ahriman's influence. Pretty cool, huh? It's quite something to explore ancient mythologies and seeing some of these parallels with our modern times. Imagine if this was like the true religion, and we're just waiting for the 12,000-year-old cycle to end, just so that evil can finally die off and everyone can be reborn. Or maybe it's better if that didn't happen. Still, if I read up on more cool stuff, I'll let you know. Did you enjoy my rambling again? Good. I'm glad I'm not boring you with these, but thank you for being as attentive as ever. You really are my star pupil, you know?